Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere less neon and more neon adjacent, the 1970s Vegas slums. That's right, the other side of the strip, not where Elvis wore rhinestones, but where your neighbor's dog probably wore a cone of shame fashioned from a KFC bucket. Forget jackpot dreams, we're talking jackpot realities, like will the AC survive until morning? And is that the sound of disco or just someone arguing over expired milk? Before we get started, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy my little audio time machines. Drop a comment below telling me where you're listening from, what time it is, and if your neighborhood has more slot machines or swamp coolers. Now, dim those lights, crank up your fan for some honest-to-goodness white noise, and flop back onto your mattress. Bonus points if it's on the floor. Make sure you're comfy, even if your sheets are a bit retro and, let's be honest, probably a little bit polyester. Let's pause for a moment. Ever wondered what Vegas was like when the only thing luxury about your home was the fact that your roof mostly kept out the rain? Did slot machines really end up in kitchens? Was a pool day just code for running through a broken fire hydrant? Did people eat anything that wasn't a bologna sandwich? How did anyone survive July in a trailer with a broken fan and neighbors playing KC and the Sunshine Band at full blast? Would you last a week before you begged for air conditioning? Or did you just adapt like a cactus in bell-bottoms? Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1974. Your rent is overdue, your fridge is empty, and the only thing colder than your landlord is the leftover tuna casserole from last night. Welcome to the real Las Vegas, where every day is a gamble, and the jackpot is just making it to tomorrow. You open your eyes to the symphony of buzzing flies, distant sirens, and the gentle cough of your neighbor's Chevy Nova. The air is thick and sticky, thanks to your swamp cooler valiantly turning tap water into slightly moist disappointment. Welcome to another day in 1970s Vegas, where fresh air is just what happens when the door won't close all the way. Let's talk about that first moment of consciousness. It's not birdsong or gentle sunlight on your face. It's sunlight absolutely beating down, instantly making you question why curtains are even a thing if they're just going to let in more heat. You blink, squint, and discover the sheet stuck to your leg like a second, much sweatier skin. If you're lucky, you haven't rolled onto the spring that's poking out of your mattress, the one that seems to find your kidney no matter how you sleep. From the ceiling fan, bravely spinning at a speed that moves exactly one molecule of air every 10 minutes. You try to find a more comfortable spot, but gravity, heat, and the existential dread of starting another day have teamed up against you. The first real decision you face. Should you put your feet on the floor? Linoleum that's somehow sticky and freezing at the same time. Maybe you've got carpet, but that's just a polite way of saying dust trap with mysterious stains. As you sit up, you realize your pillow has developed a personality overnight. Lumpy on one end, pancake flat on the other, and always slightly damp. You make a mental note to ask for a new one, knowing full well you'll forget the moment you smell coffee. Speaking of coffee, the next sound is the kitchen. The faint hiss of the kettle, the clatter of a chipped mug, maybe your mum humming along to AM radio. The kitchen table is sticky, the sugar bowl is half ants, and your milk is a non-dairy creamer that tastes like a science experiment. But caffeine is sacred, so you stir in the powdered mystery, take a sip, and contemplate your day. The swamp cooler burbles in the corner, valiantly churning out coolish air and a faint smell of mildew. Sometimes, you press your face up against its vents for a hit of hope. Sometimes, all you get is a blast of air that feels like a moist handshake from the ghost of failed home appliances. Everything about your morning is a negotiation with comfort. The floor is hot, the walls are thin. Somewhere outside, a dog barks at nothing, then everything, then nothing again. Your neighbor yells, "Shut up, Sparky," a phrase that's functionally a neighborhood alarm clock. You wonder if you should try to shower, but the bathroom is already occupied, and the water pressure could charitably be described as optional. There's no hot water, only slightly less cold, and you know if you're quick, you might get in before the hot water heater gives up entirely. Outside the bedroom window, you can see the neighbor's lawn. patches of green in a sea of dirt, maintained by someone who clearly thinks they're in a different climate. There's a sense of shared endurance. Everyone's houses look a little sunburnt, the paint peels, the mailboxes lean, and every porch has a collection of mismatched chairs that seem to multiply at night. By now, the swamp cooler has left a damp spot on the wall and in your heart. You finish your coffee, brush the ants off your socks, and step into the day, the linoleum squeaking beneath your feet. You glance at the thermostat, which is more of a decorative suggestion, and realize you're already sweating. You don't fight it anymore. You just exist in it, breathing through your mouth and hoping the flies leave you alone for 5 seconds. And as you shuffle out of your room, shirt stuck to your back, hair already doing something deeply regrettable, you take comfort in one fact. Everyone on your block is waking up to the exact same paradise. Maybe worse, maybe better, but always with a healthy sense of, at least it's not August. In the slums of 1970s Vegas, the real luxury isn't air conditioning. It's knowing you're not sweating alone. Your back aches before you even stand up, because your mattress is either directly on linoleum or perched on a frame that's missing 3 slats. Springs poke through like reminders that nothing is truly comfortable, not even your dreams. Let's be honest, no one in the 1970s Vegas slums wakes up refreshed. You wake up feeling like you've just completed a round of professional wrestling against your own bedding. You roll over, slowly, cautiously, so as not to trigger the mattress's built-in jump scare, otherwise known as that one exposed spring. Every movement comes with its own sound effects, creaks, groans, and sometimes a suspicious ping that makes you wonder if your box spring is plotting against you. Now, let's discuss your sleep options. Mattress on the floor? That's a vibe. If your vibe is camping in your own house, but with more ants. Linoleum offers a special brand of hospitality. In summer, it radiates the desert heat upward until you wake in a puddle of your own sweat. In winter, yes, Las Vegas gets cold. You're sleeping one insulted vertebra away from becoming a human popsicle. And you don't even have the dignity of a sleeping bag. You have a sheet that's about as effective as a napkin and a blanket that smells like every decade since 1959. Or maybe you've got the bed frame, the term used generously. It's a metal skeleton held together by hope, 3 actual slats, and an encyclopedic knowledge of how to angle your weight so you don't end up on the floor. There's a physics to it. Avoid the gap on the left side. Stay away from the foot of the bed, and, under no circumstances, let your younger sibling jump on it. That's an instant trip to the linoleum zone, and possibly a tetanus shot. Let's talk about those springs. They are the unsung percussion section of your life. Every toss and turn is punctuated by a boing, a thwack, and the occasional mysterious twang. You don't need an alarm clock when your mattress provides nightly updates about its structural integrity. You've memorized the spots to avoid, but they move around, like some kind of mattress Bermuda Triangle. Sheets? Thread count isn't a phrase that enters the chat. You've got polyester that clings to your legs, slides off at the slightest provocation, and makes a sound like a potato chip bag whenever you move. The pillow situation is no better. A lumpy rectangle that's either too flat or overstuffed in one angry corner, depending on which way you flip it. The pillowcase? Questionable. No one's quite sure when it was last washed, but the pattern is so faded it might actually be a collector's item now. Let's not forget the frame's hidden talent. Storage. Yes, the space under your bed is crammed with unsorted laundry, old magazines, possibly a broken fan, and at least one shoe that hasn't seen its pair since the Carter administration. There's a comforting chaos under there, a reminder that in the Vegas slums, every square foot is precious real estate. Sound familiar? Of course it does. If you've ever stayed up tossing and turning in the summer heat, you'll know the agony of the bed shuffle. Left side, right side, stomach, back. Every angle is equally uncomfortable. But you keep trying, because hope springs eternal. Literally, sometimes, you stare at the ceiling and wonder what it's like to have a real bed. Maybe something that doesn't squeak when you breathe. Maybe a mattress with enough padding that you don't feel every contour of the ancient springs. But you shrug, pull the polyester up to your chin and try to find a cool spot on the pillow. There's always one, and it's always gone by morning. In the end, whether your mattress is on the floor or perched on a rickety frame, you make it work. Comfort is relative. Survival is a team sport. And when you finally stand up, joints cracking like fireworks, you're greeted by the sound of your neighbor's mattress chorus, echoing through the paper-thin walls, because in the slums, sleep isn't about comfort, it's about outlasting your bedding. And if you manage to get 6 hours without a spring-related injury, you're basically living the dream. Breakfast is an event. Instant coffee, a slice of bread with maybe some spam if you're flush, and the ritual taste test of the tap water. Does it taste like chlorine or something more sinister? Either way, bottoms up. The day always starts in the kitchen, which, if you're lucky, doubles as the dining room, homework center, laundry staging area, and occasionally a place to hide when your siblings are on a rampage. The linoleum floor is pockmarked, scarred from years of dropped pans and the occasional indoor roller skate experiment. Your chair is mismatched and wobbly, rescued from someone's curbside pile months ago. You sit carefully, aiming for the least splintery bit, and scan the table for signs of breakfast. Here in the heart of 1970s Vegas, luxury is spelled S-P-A-M. The can sits on the counter, a glistening pink monolith of hope and sodium. If it's a good week, maybe payday just hit, or you found some change in the couch, there's enough for every kid to get a slice. It lands on your bread with a satisfying plop. Cold? Sure. Fried? On very special days. If the spam runs out, you move to peanut butter so dry it actually soaks up saliva as you chew. Some days it's just toast and butter. Well, butter, which is really margarine with dreams of grandeur. Now, about that coffee. This is not artisanal, single origin, pour-over nonsense. This is freeze-dried. Scoop it from a jar. Don't look at the label coffee. You scoop a generous pile into a chipped mug and add boiling water, stirring with a spoon that's always a little sticky. The first sip is a dare. Will it taste like coffee? Will it taste like hot cardboard? Or will it be a new flavor that hasn't been invented yet? Possibly because it's technically illegal. No matter. This is fuel, not a treat. Even kids sometimes get a splash in their milk, a generational loophole that, strangely, does not produce any superpowers. And now, the water. Vegas tap water in the 1970s is an experience unto itself. It emerges from the faucet with a strong chemical bouquet. Some days it's all chlorine, other days there's a subtle hint of swampy fish tank. If you're really lucky, it just tastes like water plus a dash of mysterious minerals. You fill a glass, swirl it like you're at a wine tasting, and brace yourself. At this point, your taste buds are either numb or have simply given up, waving a white flag of surrender somewhere in the back of your mouth. Breakfast conversation is minimal, mostly because everyone is busy chewing, sipping, and eyeing the last piece of bread. Sometimes there's a scramble for the jam jar, which is usually empty except for that one congealed, unreachable blob at the bottom. You try not to think about how many kids have poked it with sticky fingers. There's a lot of silent bargaining. If you give me the crust, I'll let you use the good spoon, but alliances shift quickly, and nothing is sacred, especially not the last slice of spam. The kitchen radio crackles to life, and for a few minutes, disco mixes with the sound of spoons scraping bowls. Maybe the morning news talks about a heat wave. Or maybe there's another report about a new casino opening up on the Strip. Nobody listens too closely. You're focused on your breakfast, your plans for the day, and whether the school bus will actually show up this time. By the time the plates are scraped and the mugs rinsed, you've survived another round of the morning ritual. You head into the day with the lingering aftertaste of spam and coffee, and the not-so-subtle suspicion that your water just winked at you. In the slums, every morning is a gamble, and breakfast is just the first hand you play. There's no central air, just the constant gurgle of the swamp cooler fighting a losing battle against the Nevada sun. Some days, you sit in front of it and dream about snow. Other days, you just put your feet in the bathtub and pretend. Let's be honest, in 1970s Vegas, A swamp cooler isn't really a luxury. It's more like a seasonal suggestion, a well-meaning but hopeless participant in the war against heat. Your house sits on the edge of the desert, literally. You can look out the back window and see the shimmer of sand, the distant promise of the strip's neon, and not a single shade tree in sight. The only thing that moves faster than the temperature is the speed at which your optimism disappears around noon. Morning is the swamp cooler's golden hour. The air is sort of cool, sort of damp, and if you close your eyes, you can almost convince yourself that coolish is a real thing. The unit itself looks like a rusty spaceship mounted in your window, gurgling as it chews through gallons of tap water. It has 2 speeds. Not enough. And please turn me off before I explode. The control panel is a relic from the space age, but every button just leads to a different kind of noise. Click low, and you get a gentle whine, like a dog begging for snacks. Click high, and it sounds like a jet engine about to throw a tantrum. You spend your mornings shifting furniture around to maximize airflow. Everyone develops a 6th sense for the cool zone, that one magical spot, exactly 2 feet from the vent, where the air almost feels refreshing. The rest of the house is divided into muggy, muggier, and abandon all hope. Sitting in front of the cooler is a neighborhood tradition. Sometimes 3 kids, a dog, and your uncle's friend from Reno all jostle for space, hoping for a momentary breeze. Arguments break out. Who was here first? Whose turn is it? And who keeps blocking the vent with their giant feet? By midday, the sun takes no prisoners. Temperatures soar. The asphalt outside gets soft enough to eat your flip-flops, and the swamp cooler wheezes in defeat. The air gets heavier, stickier, and somehow everything, including the couch, develops a thin, mysterious layer of sweat. If you lean against the walls, you'll leave an imprint, like a crime scene outline drawn in moisture. Sometimes the cooler spits out an extra splash, soaking the carpet and giving you a new, unexpected swamp. The living room. The grown-ups reminisce about real air conditioning, as if it's a mystical artifact guarded by the wealthy on the other side of town. You're not convinced it actually exists. Everyone in your house has mastered heat survival hacks. Feet in the bathtub, shirts in the freezer, and for the bold, a cold washcloth on the forehead, which is both a fashion statement and a desperate act of self-preservation. On truly dangerous days, you retreat to the backyard with a spray bottle, pretending you're at a pool. Your neighbor's sprinkler suddenly becomes community property. By evening, the house smells like wet laundry and old lettuce. The sun finally goes down, but the heat lingers, stuck inside like an unwanted guest. The swamp cooler limps on, determined to win, while you and your family sprawl on every available surface, too tired to move, too sticky to care. You fantasize about winter, about snow, about even a breeze that doesn't feel like a hairdryer on low. Still, there's something oddly comforting about it all. The familiar gurgle, the nightly ritual of refilling the water, the collective surrender to the desert, all of it is woven into your daily life. It's not glamorous, it's not effective, but it's yours. In the eternal battle of swamp cooler versus desert, you know the outcome. The desert wins, but you get bragging rights for surviving another day in your homemade sauna. And somewhere, in the middle of all that heat, you realize, if you can laugh, sweat, and still manage to sleep, you're winning more than you think. Your morning soundtrack is a blend of barking dogs, parents yelling at kids to get up for school, and the muffled thump of disco records escaping every open window. It's not exactly Sinatra, but it's authentic. You might think Las Vegas is a city of high-rolling silence and casino whispers, but in the slums, life is a constant, low-budget concert. The curtain rises with sunrise. First, the sharp yelp of the neighbor's dog, who has apparently discovered something scandalous about the trash can. Again, his barking triggers a chain reaction, each canine voice joining in with its own critique of the neighborhood. One block over, a chihuahua offers high-pitched counterpoint, while across the street, a bloodhound lends the kind of bass line you can feel in your bones. The human chorus comes next. Parents stage their own vocal warm-ups, bellowing names and threats with the urgency of Broadway actors late for curtain call. Get your shoes on, don't forget your lunch. If you're not outside in 2 minutes, I'm leaving you for the roaches. Each shout is punctuated by the slamming of screen doors and the mysterious thump of something heavy hitting the floor, possibly a shoe, possibly a sibling. Then, there's the disco. This is the 1970s, after all. And someone, somewhere, is always spinning vinyl. The music leaks through the thin apartment walls and open windows, a hazy pulse of Bee Gees and KC, and the Sunshine Band riding on waves of summer heat. Sometimes two neighbors go head-to-head, competing for airspace, one blasting Stayin' Alive, the other replying with Boogie Shoes. The effect is less like a party and more like a musical turf war, where everyone wins and nobody cares about volume control. Layered on top of the neighborhood's greatest hits is the steady drone of traffic. Cars with rattling mufflers cruise by, some belching exhaust, others blasting more disco, or sometimes, just to keep you guessing, classic country. A city bus sighs to a stop, the doors hissing open, as bleary-eyed commuters and equally bleary-eyed students shuffle aboard. If you listen carefully, you can pick out the clatter of someone's bicycle, the squeal of rusty brakes, and the distant whir of an ice cream truck warming up for its daily run. And, because this is Las Vegas, the city of action, you get a dose of sirens most mornings. Police, ambulances, the occasional fire truck, all making their way down the main drag, lights flashing in the early sun. The sirens are so common that nobody flinches, except for the dogs, who treat every emergency vehicle as a personal affront. Their barks reach new heights, ensuring the neighborhood's sleep quota is kept to a minimum. Every now and then, a new sound enters the mix. A hammer on metal as someone fixes their fence, the click and buzz of a neighbor's faulty porch light, the soft clink of glass bottles as empty soda cans are gathered for recycling. If you're lucky, there's laughter, kids chasing each other, grown-ups sharing a joke while waiting for a ride, the sound of a radio announcer trying to sell you used cars in a voice 3 octaves higher than medically recommended. It's chaotic, it's unpredictable, and it's utterly alive. Forget meditative silence. Here, your peace comes from knowing exactly what's happening by the soundtrack alone. You can tell who overslept, who got a new puppy, and whose parents gave up on yelling and went straight to the silent stare. In the slums, privacy is a concept, but community is a reality, one you can literally hear. And as you finally lace up your shoes, disco still bouncing in your skull, you realize this neighborhood might not be quiet, but it sure knows how to start the day with style. After all, not everyone gets to live inside their very own morning mixtape. You open the fridge. Options: bologna, processed cheese, maybe a banana if you got paid early. Wonder Bread for the win. You might get creative and call it sandwich artistry, but really, it's just survival with a side of nostalgia. Let's take a closer look at this sacred morning ritual. There are 2 types of people in the slums: those who have accepted bologna as a food group, and those who pretend they have a choice. The refrigerator light flickers like a cheap Vegas marquee, illuminating the stacked slices of meat that jiggle with the promise of high sodium and low expectations. Some days, the cheese is American, which means it's orange, comes in individually wrapped slices, and has the consistency of soft plastic, perfect for folding into origami before reluctantly placing it on your bread. Wonder Bread is the foundation of the meal. And by foundation, I mean it dissolves into paste the second you look at it too hard. It's soft, white, and so nutritionally empty, it squeaks when you squeeze it, but it's cheap, it's everywhere, and it never judges. You slap your bologna and cheese on top, maybe a dab of mustard if you're feeling fancy. Ketchup? That's for the rebels. Mayonnaise? Only if you like to gamble with expiration dates. Sometimes, breakfast is cold, and sometimes it's microwaved, because if you can melt the cheese, you can almost pretend you're eating an omelette. The microwave itself is a family relic, smelling faintly of popcorn, old soup, and the suspicious incident of 72 no one talks about. If the microwave is broken, again, you simply accept your fate. In the land of bologna and Wonder Bread, nobody expects a hot meal. It's a tradition, really. If you're one of the lucky few, there might be a banana left over from the shopping trip. A little brown, a little mushy, but undeniably a fruit. Kids fight for it like it's a golden ticket, and parents eye it suspiciously, wondering if it's worth risking the sticky peels. On desperate mornings, you consider making a fruit sandwich, but you remember last time and the sticky disaster that followed. This breakfast isn't about flavor, it's about fuel. You chew, you swallow, and you power up for the day ahead. School, work, or the daily grind of just getting by in the heat. Everyone is running on the same combination of processed protein and nostalgia. Every bite takes you back to yesterday, last week, last year, because the menu doesn't really change. It's culinary time travel. Even your parents ate bologna and Wonder Bread. It's a family heirloom that comes pre-sliced. And yes, there's always the chance of getting creative. Some people stack the bologna thick, triple-decker style, while others cut the crusts off for that gourmet touch. The truly brave make bologna roll-ups, which is just what it sounds like. Bologna rolled into a tube and eaten like a cigar, because dignity is relative. Every household has their own variations, passed down through generations, whispered about over weak coffee and strong memories. Let's not forget the drink. A glass of tang, maybe powdered milk, or just straight-up tap water. Try not to think about it. You toast to survival, and maybe make a joke about breakfast of champions. Deep down, everyone knows that this isn't winning, it's just not losing. But there's a kind of pride in that, too. As you finish up, you ball your sandwich wrapper and toss it in the trash, listening to the neighborhood symphony of other families doing the exact same thing. The smell of fried bologna drifts through the open windows, mingling with disco music and the faint hope that someday, just maybe, there'll be bacon. But for now, you dust the crumbs off your lap and get on with the day. Because in the slums of 1970s Vegas, breakfast isn't about luxury. It's about making it work with what you've got and making it through, one nostalgic bite at a time. The bathroom is an adventure. One wobbly faucet, a shower curtain that's seen better decades, and a mysterious leak that only gets fixed after every rainstorm. Toothpaste is shared. Privacy isn't. Let's be honest, the bathroom in a 1970s Vegas slum is less personal oasis and more group project you never volunteered for. Forget marble countertops or those fancy towels you see in commercials. The counter here is yellowed formica, scarred with cigarette burns and the vague shadow of a toothpaste explosion that nobody bothered to clean. The faucet wobbles dangerously, threatening to detach from the sink every time you dare to turn on the cold tap. And the cold tap is never actually cold, just less hot than outside, unless it's winter, in which case everything is frozen and the pipes rattle like a snake warning you to back off. Your first task: navigate the morning lineup. Privacy is a myth. If the door even closes, it's because someone is holding it shut from the inside, shouting, "Occupied," like a lifeline. In a family of 6, the bathroom is prime real estate. You learn to shower fast. Some days, you even shower with an audience, usually a sibling brushing their teeth, combing their hair, or just making faces in the mirror because there's nowhere else to go. Modesty? Not in this zip code. The shower curtain is a relic of ancient times. Faded flowers or geometric shapes. Edges curling with mildew. It clings to you with a cold, wet embrace every time you move, like a needy ghost who's desperate for attention. The showerhead spits water at unpredictable angles, so you master the side lean technique, trying to catch the stream, while avoiding the rust-colored drip from the pipe above. You tell yourself that's just iron in the water, probably. Soap comes in 2 flavors, whatever's cheapest and whatever's left over from the motel job someone's uncle had 3 years ago. Shampoo? Maybe. More often it's just the same bar of soap, shared between siblings, worn down to a sliver so small it could double as dental floss. Toothpaste is communal property. Everyone squeezes from a different end, and the cap is always missing. It's a miracle if you don't end up brushing your teeth with baking soda or, on truly desperate days, just rinsing and hoping for the best. And then there's the leaky pipe. It doesn't leak all the time, just enough to keep you guessing. After every rainstorm, it springs to life, dripping rhythmically onto the linoleum floor, which has given up all hope of ever being dry. Sometimes you lay down a towel, sometimes you just accept the puddle and practice your don't slip shuffle. The landlord says he'll fix it next week, a phrase that has lost all meaning. Towels? Never where you left them. Someone always borrows your towel, leaving you with one that's either suspiciously damp or so thin you could read the comics through it. If you're late to the party, you dry off with a t-shirt and hope no one notices. There's a kind of camaraderie in the chaos. You exchange war stories with siblings who used all the hot water, who broke the soap dish, who left the mysterious streaks on the mirror. Sometimes the shower turns cold halfway through, and you howl like a game show contestant who just lost big. That's just life. You adapt, you improvise, you get out of the bathroom and let the next person run the gauntlet. Because in the 1970s Vegas slums, the bathroom isn't just a room, it's an obstacle course, a family meeting spot, and a daily lesson in humility. If you come out clean and uninjured, congratulations, you've beaten the house, at least for today. Getting dressed is a game of mix and match. Hand-me-down jeans, maybe some questionable polyester, and always a pair of flip-flops that have melted into the sidewalk more than once. In the 1970s Vegas slums, fashion isn't about expressing your individuality, it's about whatever didn't get a hole in it last week. Your closet is a metal rod screwed into the corner of your room, half hiding behind a floral sheet, and everything you own smells faintly of the communal laundry room. You flip through your wardrobe, which mostly consists of clothes your older siblings grew out of, and your younger siblings are already eyeing hungrily. There's a pair of bell-bottoms with a ketchup stain that never quite came out, a tank top advertising a local pizza parlor that no longer exists, and a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big, faded to a mystery color somewhere between beige and did this once belong to a cat. You've got 2 seasons of clothing, hot and less hot. On the rare cold mornings, you layer everything and hope for the best. But most of the year, it's tank tops, cut-offs, and whatever will let the slightest breeze reach your skin. Polyester was supposed to be the fabric of the future, but in this future, it's just a recipe for stickiness and static shocks. You pull a shirt over your head, immediately start sweating, and then walk outside, only to realize it clings to you in places you didn't know existed. By noon, you'll be wishing for the breeze from a passing bus, anything to make this material move. The hand-me-down cycle is relentless. Maybe you get a new shirt, meaning your cousin outgrew it and it made the cross-town pilgrimage. It's usually accompanied by a story. That hole? I fell out of a tree. That paint? Art class? The weird burn mark? Don't ask. Everything has a legacy, and you get to add your own chapter. Whether it's a ketchup incident, a marker mishap, or just surviving another Vegas summer, shoes are a luxury, but flip-flops are a necessity. You go through 3 pairs a year, all from the discount bin, all destined to leave little rubber trails behind as they slowly dissolve on the sun-baked pavement. There's always that moment when the toe strap pops out and you try to MacGyver it with a bread twist tie or a safety pin. Actual sneakers are reserved for nice occasions, like school picture day or grandma's birthday dinner at the all-you-can-eat buffet. Every family has that one box of special occasion clothes. It lives on a high shelf, wrapped in a garbage bag for protection. These are the sacred bell-bottoms that aren't yet threadbare, the button-up shirt with only 2 missing buttons, and maybe, if you're really lucky, a pair of actual, unbroken sandals. You wear them once, and then back into the bag they go, safe until the next wedding, funeral, or school talent show. Hairstyles deserve a mention too. Mom cuts everyone's hair in the kitchen, armed with dull scissors and a plastic comb. Every haircut ends with someone crying. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's her. Bangs are always crooked, sideburns are optional, and if you're brave, you let your sibling fix it. Hair gel? Not in this economy. It's all about natural volume, courtesy of hard water and whatever was left in last night's pillowcase. At the end of the day, nobody's winning fashion awards here, but there's freedom in not caring. because everyone is in the same polyester boat. You strut down the block, flip-flops slapping, hair wild, bell-bottoms flapping in the desert wind, and know deep down that if style is about confidence, then you're basically walking the Vegas runway. Even if you smell a little like last night's spaghetti, school lunches are a study in orange, tang, cheese puffs, and Twinkies swapped on the playground like contraband. Forget nutrition, it's all about what can survive the heat. You begin the day in the kitchen, staring down a loaf of Wonder Bread, a stack of plastic sandwich bags, and a canister of that legendary neon tang powder, an orange drink created by scientists who apparently had never seen an actual orange. You scoop a heaping tablespoon of tang into your thermos, add water that tastes faintly of hose, and watch it swirl into a color not found in nature. That's lunch, citrus-inspired optimism, and a full day's worth of artificial vitamins. Next up, the sandwich. It's bologna or peanut butter, with jelly if you're fancy, and have a parent in a good mood. You slap it together, fold it up in wax paper, and into the paper sack it goes. If you're lucky, there's a slice of government cheese, its own shade of orange, best described as crayon number 12, school lunch gold. There are no ice packs, no insulated bags. The desert sun will decide the fate of your lunch, and after 4 hours in a hot classroom cubby, everything emerges with the temperature and consistency of a microwaved towel. The highlight? The snack. If your family budget allowed for treats, you might get cheese puffs, so orange they could double as traffic cones. The bag gets split between you and your siblings, and by lunch, your fingers are stained for the rest of the day. On a really special day, you open your lunch to find a Twinkie, that golden, squishy tube of mystery cake filled with cream that somehow never melts, rots, or changes in any observable way. Some say they'll outlast the sun. On the playground, Twinkies are the gold standard. You can trade one for 2 fruit roll-ups, a pack of grape bubblegum, or even the coveted chocolate pudding cup if you negotiate hard enough. Fruit is a wild card. Sometimes there's an apple, bruised beyond recognition, or a banana that started out yellow but somehow arrives at school a shade of brown only seen on old wallpaper. No one ever brings grapes, because grapes are for people who live in houses with more than one bathroom. And then there are the mystery snacks. Maybe a half-eaten bag of pretzels from last week's car ride, or a granola bar from the bottom of the grocery bag, already bent into a shape not intended by nature. You toss it in anyway. Lunch is not about perfection, it's about options, and more importantly, trade value. Because the real meal happens on the playground. As soon as the bell rings, it's an open market. You trade cheese puffs for a ding-dong, half a sandwich for some Fritos, or, if you're feeling generous, your tang for a Capri Sun. If you can convince someone that powdered astronaut juice is actually a step up, deals are struck, alliances formed, and betrayals remembered. Your best friend becomes your sworn enemy if you snatch their last marshmallow treat. Nutrition is a distant dream. The food pyramid exists only as a colorful poster on the cafeteria wall, which you ignore in favor of anything with sugar, crunch, or the faint possibility of chocolate. Even the lunch lady knows the score. She hands out milk cartons with a knowing look. Yes, it's warm. Yes, you have to drink it. And no, the government cheese is not optional. By the end of the day, your lunch sack is empty, your fingers are bright orange, and your stomach is full of nothing the FDA would approve. But you've survived. In the land of Twinkies and Tang, that's victory. And tomorrow, you'll do it all over again, because if history teaches us anything, it's that the strongest survive on snacks and sugar, not salads. And honestly, the only real food group is whatever you can trade for a Twinkie. The school bus is late. The bike is missing a pedal. Sometimes you just walk, hoping the soles of your shoes last the journey across 3 blocks of sun-baked pavement and suspicious puddles. Getting to school in the Vegas slums is less a routine and more a daily lottery with a rotating cast of unreliable options. The morning begins with a frantic countdown as you stare at the clock, trying to guess whether the bus driver has called in sick, gotten lost, or simply decided to reroute to Reno. You wait at the corner, sun glaring off the cracked sidewalk, watching as the other kids gather, each one performing their own version of the "Is it coming?" dance. A shuffle punctuated by anxious glances down the block. If you're a bus kid, you've learned the art of patience and also the art of squinting into the distance, trying to spot the yellow box as it lumbers into view. Sometimes a parent will call the school for an update only to get a sympathetic sigh and the same advice: just wait a little longer. The only thing less predictable than the school bus schedule is whether you'll end up sitting next to someone who brought boiled eggs for breakfast. If the bus doesn't show, you eye your backup ride, the family bike, or, as it's known, the relic. Maybe it was once red, maybe it belonged to someone in another state, but now it's mostly rust and duct tape, the seat worn smooth, and the handlebars bent at a suspicious angle. If your house has more than one kid, you may end up doubling up, pedaling furiously, while your little brother clings to the back, and you both try not to tip over. The missing pedal is a Vegas classic. 1-foot pedaling means you travel in awkward, circular lurches, shoes scraping the ground with every revolution. Helmets, not unless you count the baseball cap someone left in the lost and found. Walking is the final, noble option. You set out with a couple of friends, backpacks slung low, and start the daily trek. Vegas sidewalks aren't made for comfort. The pavement heats up fast, and by September, you can practically fry an egg between crosswalks. The cracks are deep enough to swallow a flip-flop, and someone's dog always leaves a surprise you have to dodge. Half the time, the sprinklers on the block have created mystery puddles that force you into a hopscotch routine. And, as always, there's a gauntlet of barking dogs behind chain-link fences, testing your nerves and your sprinting speed. There's a kind of camaraderie in the commute. You and your friends compare shoe durability, trade stories of bus disasters, and compete to see who can jump the widest puddle without falling in. Every morning brings its own minor adventures: a near miss with a careening skateboarder, a brief showdown with a territorial goose, or the impromptu foot race when you spot the bus finally rolling in 2 blocks away. Arrival at school feels like crossing a finish line. You compare sweat stains, check for blisters, and, if you biked, examine your shins for new bruises. Sometimes you show up early and catch the janitor unlocking the front door. More often, you arrive just as the bell rings, out of breath, hair wild, shoes dusted with mystery grit, and the occasional smear of who knows what. You join the crowd streaming in, a mass of tired, sun-baked kids with stories to tell about their journey. In the slums of 1970s Vegas, there's no such thing as a boring commute. Getting to school is an endurance test, one that nobody trains for, but everyone survives. And if your shoes hold up until Friday, you count it as a win. If not, there's always next week, another borrowed bike, and one more sunrise to try your luck against the Vegas pavement. After school, you're a latchkey kid. Your parents are working, and your real babysitter is reruns of The Brady Bunch and whatever cartoons come through the rabbit ears on your black and white TV. The house is quiet in that particular way only a house full of absent adults can be. You step inside, close the door, and automatically double-check the lock, a habit you picked up from your older sibling and reinforced by that one neighbor who claimed he once saw a raccoon open a door just like a person. Your key is a bent piece of metal on a shoelace you wear around your neck, tucked into your shirt like a secret identity badge. Latchkey kids everywhere recognize this uniform: scraped knees, a pocket full of weird coins, and a snack-sized sense of independence. You toss your backpack on the sagging couch, ignoring the groan from the springs, and head straight for the kitchen. There's a ritual to after-school snacking. Sometimes you're lucky and there's leftover casserole. More often, you're on your own, with a sleeve of saltines and half a jar of peanut butter so stiff you could use it as tile grout. Maybe you pour a glass of Tang, or, if you're feeling fancy, a cold glass of tap water with 3 ice cubes, if the freezer managed to make any. You turn on the TV, ready to let it raise you for the next few hours. The TV itself is a prehistoric artifact, heavy, buzzing, and requiring a twist of the dial and a slap on the side to convince it to show more than snow. If you're really determined, you'll go on an expedition behind the set, fiddling with the rabbit ears, adding a twist of tinfoil for that premium 2-channel experience. Cartoons flicker in and out. Sometimes it's Bugs Bunny, sometimes it's reruns of the Jetsons, and sometimes you land on a local news anchor whose hair seems to defy both gravity and taste. The real classic, though, is the Brady Bunch. There's something weirdly soothing about watching 6 kids and 2 adults solve problems that, compared to your daily life, seem like minor hiccups. Oh, Marcia got a nosebleed? Cindy lost her doll? You'd like to invite them to survive a day in the Vegas slums and see how they do when the swamp cooler breaks and the only thing for dinner is a cheese sandwich made from the heel of the loaf. Meanwhile, you're keeping one ear out for any suspicious noises. Every latchkey kid has a mental map of safe hiding places in case of emergency, behind the couch, in the hall closet, or underneath the kitchen table, armed with a wooden spoon for self-defense. The truth is, most of the time you're alone, you're not afraid, you're just bored. You invent games. How long can you balance on one foot? How many Cheez-Its fit in your mouth at once? Or how far you can throw a balled-up sock before your little brother yells from the next room. As the sun goes down, the shadows stretch across the living room, and you start counting the minutes until someone comes home. You finish your homework in the soft glow of the television, the drone of laugh tracks and cartoon sound effects providing background noise. Every car that pulls into the lot is a burst of hope. Maybe it's Mom, maybe Dad, maybe just the neighbor checking the mail again. You tidy up a bit, wipe peanut butter off the counter with the back of your hand, and slide your homework under a magazine. In those hours between school and family dinner, you're alone, but never lonely. Not really. You've got the TV, your snacks, and the quiet pride of knowing you survived another afternoon as a certified latchkey kid. In the slums, self-reliance is less a virtue and more a necessity, handed out with your house key, and a reminder not to open the door for anyone, unless, of course, they're delivering pizza. If you're lucky, there's hamburger helper. If not, dinner is a casserole of whatever's in the can. Sometimes, you suspect your mom is actually a culinary magician, turning 4 ingredients and desperation into something vaguely edible. It's early evening in the Vegas slums, and the sun is finally starting to set, trading scorching heat for the subtle ambience of flickering porch lights and the scent of something burning 2 apartments down. Inside your kitchen, the culinary mood is best described as experimental. Your mum stands at the counter, surveying the day's haul like a contestant on a cooking show with 0 budget, no time limit, and surprise ingredients that sometimes include a can of creamed corn with no label and a half onion that's more ambition than vegetable. The meal prep starts with a familiar sound, the clack and scrape of a can opener working overtime. Canned beans? Check. Mystery soup? Why not? Chopped hot dogs? If you have them, they go in. Protein is protein. After all, she adds a dash of dried herbs from a plastic shaker that lost its label in the Johnson administration. A sprinkle of whatever cheese is left in the fridge. If it's not green, it's clean, and the sacred finishing move, a generous shake of salt, because if it tastes salty, at least it tastes like something. On truly glorious nights, there's a box of hamburger helper on the counter. This is fine dining. You watch as browned ground beef, never quite enough for everyone, but made to stretch with heroic levels of pasta and powdered sauce, transforms into a bubbling skillet of savory, orange-hued glory. The directions on the box say it feeds 5, but with a little extra water and some stealthy additions, chopped bell pepper, maybe a handful of frozen peas from the back of the freezer, it can feed an army, or at least your family plus a random neighbor who just dropped by. The table is set with mismatched plates, plastic, chipped, and sometimes featuring cartoon characters that went out of style a decade ago. The silverware drawer contains exactly 3 forks and a collection of spoons that look like they survived a prison riot. You pour drinks. Tang for the kids, sun tea for the grown-ups, and tap water for everyone who draws the short straw. Dinner conversation is part survival guide, part open mic night. Everyone's got a story. What the weird kid at school did, which teacher caught someone passing notes, and how the neighbor's dog ate an entire bag of marshmallows again. The meal is noisy, chaotic, and punctuated by the constant scraping of forks against plates as you search for the last bit of cheese sauce. Someone complains about the peas, someone else asks if there's dessert, and your mom reminds everyone that canned peaches absolutely count as dessert if you eat them straight from the can. There's a special skill to eating in the slums. You never ask what's in the casserole, you just eat it and hope for the best. If you taste something suspicious, you push it to the edge of your plate and move on. Food waste is a cardinal sin. Leftovers are gold, wrapped in plastic and guarded in the fridge like lost treasure, waiting for a second act as tomorrow's lunch. As dinner winds down, the dishes pile up, and someone volunteers or is voluntold to wash them. The sink fills with suds, laughter, and the familiar bickering over who's actually doing the rinsing. You leave the table full, if not satisfied, then at least not hungry. In the end, dinner is less about what's on the plate and more about who's around the table. In the Vegas slums, you learn to eat with gratitude, laugh at the chaos, and savor every bite, even if it's hamburger helper with a side of mystery. When you hear the ice cream trucks jingle, it's like a Vegas jackpot for kids. If you can find a quarter, you're eating a bomb pop. If not, you're chasing the truck anyway, just for the hope. Every kid in the slums knows that sound, the distant, slightly warbling melody that floats across the desert air, carrying the promise of frozen sugar on a stick. It could be Pop Goes the Weasel or Turkey in the Straw, and it always seems to play at the exact moment you've just sat down, or worse, when you're still barefoot. Like some primal alarm, the jingle triggers a neighborhood-wide stampede. Doors slam open, children scatter from driveways, and a flurry of shouts, "Ice cream! Wait up! Hold the truck!" erupts across the block. You drop whatever you're doing, sprint into the house, and begin the classic scavenger hunt. Digging through couch cushions, raiding the penny jar, begging siblings for a loan, and even offering to trade chores for loose change. Sometimes you get lucky and find a whole quarter. Other times, you present a pile of nickels, dimes, and a Canadian penny, holding it out with a look that says, "Close enough, right?" The parent in the room weighs the options. Give you the change or endure 20 minutes of your best sad puppy face. Results may vary. Then comes the mad dash outside, feet barely in shoes, risking burns on the sun-baked sidewalk. The ice cream truck itself is a sight. A faded van painted with melting cartoon characters. A rainbow menu taped to the side promising wonders. Fudge-sickles, choco tacos, and the coveted bomb pop. The driver, a part-time magician and full-time negotiator, leans out the window with a knowing grin. He's seen it all. The hustlers, the negotiators, the kids who try to trade a half-melted crayon for a snow cone. If you've got the money, the transaction is swift. One coin, one treat, an instant shot of happiness that drips down your hand faster than you can eat it. You unwrap your bomb pop with reverence, taking that first bite before it's even halfway out of the paper. It's cold, it's sweet, and it stains your lips. A patriotic shade of red, white, and blue that lasts until bath time. If you don't have the cash, you chase the truck anyway. You run alongside, breathless, as your friends score their loot. Maybe, just maybe, the driver will take pity and hand out a tiny cup of ice, or let you lick the wrapper. More likely, you just bask in the company and the hope, the true currency of the childhood lottery. Some days, someone's older sibling covers you, handing over a dime and a wink with the wisdom of someone who's been there. The sidewalk becomes a scene of sticky joy and rapid negotiations. You trade bites with friends, compare who got the best prize, and inevitably drop the last chunk of ice cream on the ground, prompting a Greek chorus of sympathetic groans. You chase the truck to the next block, just in case there's a miracle, a forgotten nickel, a kindly neighbor, or a driver in a generous mood. Eventually, the music fades, the truck rolls on, and you're left with nothing but a sticky hand and a story. You walk home, triumphant or empty-handed, knowing that tomorrow's jackpot is only a jingle away. For a few glorious minutes, you and every kid on your block got to believe in luck, in sweetness, and in the magic that sometimes, just sometimes, a quarter really could change your whole day. And as the sun goes down and your face is still stained blue, you know that in the slums, hope isn't just for grown-ups and gamblers. Sometimes it's for kids with sticky fingers and dreams of the next ice cream truck. Everyone's front door is open to catch the breeze, or because it doesn't close. Neighbors shout across driveways, someone's mowing a patchy lawn, and the day's gossip floats as freely as the dust. Everyone's front door is open to catch the breeze, or because it doesn't close. Neighbors shout across driveways, someone's mowing a patchy lawn, and the day's gossip floats as freely as the dust. In the slums of 1970s Vegas, late afternoon isn't just about cooling off. It's about catching up. The sun has dipped just enough to make sitting outside survivable. And every porch becomes its own little theater. The swamp coolers hum from every window, gurgling and wheezing in chorus, their valiant attempts at comfort barely keeping up with the desert. You learn to tell which houses have the best coolers just by where the kids gather, sticking arms through the screen door and arguing over whose turn it is to hog the breeze. The world outside is a living, breathing network of voices. Mr. Gonzalez from down the block is out front, shirtless, watering a yard that is 70% dirt, 20% weeds, and 10% stubborn grass. He waves his hose around with the authority of a man defending his last square foot of green. Across the street, Mrs. Patel sets out folding chairs, offering lemonade from a pitcher, sweating harder than anyone in the neighborhood. Someone's uncle sits in a lawn chair that's seen more summers than the Chevy Nova parked half on, half off the curb. There's a rhythm to the afternoon. The whir of a lawnmower starts up and sputters out, as one neighbor tries to wrangle their overgrown patch into respectability. The sound of metal hitting rock is sharp and familiar, a soundtrack to summer that's just as much about effort as achievement. Someone's kid runs through the sprinkler, shrieking with delight. Water arcs through the sun, creating the kind of rainbow you only see in places where nobody can afford a real pool. But the real action is in the air, the gossip, the chisme. It floats from porch to porch, handed off in stage whispers, loud laughs, and the occasional scandalized gasp. You learn everything you need to know about the neighborhood without ever leaving your stoop. Who got a new job, who's dating who's behind on rent, whose cousin got caught borrowing a bicycle from 7-Eleven. No story is too small for the grapevine. Your mom listens with one ear, pretends not to care, then makes sure you repeat every detail later. It's information warfare, and nobody wants to miss the next big headline. Kids roam in packs, trading snacks, stories, and dares. Someone's always selling lemonade, sometimes with a little extra sugar, sometimes with a fly for protein. You line up anyway, hand over a penny, and sip the sweet, slightly gritty victory of summer entrepreneurship. Older kids ride by on beat-up bikes, boomboxes balanced on their shoulders, blasting disco and daring each other to pop wheelies over the curb. The bravest attempt to skateboard, usually ending in dramatic spills and a chorus of "You okay?" from half the block. As dusk creeps in, the chisme doesn't stop. It just gets louder, fueled by laughter, cheap beer, and the sense that everyone's in this together. The desert cools, a stray breeze finds its way through the neighborhood, and the porch lights flicker on, one by one. Swamp coolers gurgle into the night, windows stay open, and voices drift on until the crickets take over the soundtrack. In the Vegas slums, community isn't just a word. It's a survival strategy, a block party that never ends, and the only news source you really trust. By the time you're called in for dinner, you've caught up on the neighborhood, cooled down, sort of, and heard at least 3 stories you'll be repeating all week. And if you're lucky, tomorrow's breeze will bring even better gossip. The laundromat is a second home. Bring quarters, bring patience, and pray no one's kid started a soap fight. If you're feeling lucky, maybe your socks will come out the same color they went in. Laundry day in the slums of 1970s. Vegas is less about freshness and more about survival. Every family on the block converges on the local laundromat, an air-conditioned oasis on good days, humming with a dozen machines and just enough broken chairs to guarantee you'll be standing. You lug your bulging plastic basket down the street, feeling like a nomad crossing the desert with all your worldly goods, half of which are stained, none of which are truly white anymore. You arrive to the usual chaos. The washers are lined up like soldiers, half in working order, half decorated with handwritten out-of-order signs that have been there longer than you've been alive. The good machines are claimed before sunrise. The rest of us stand around, eyeing each other with the suspicion of poker players at a high-stakes table. Quarters are the real currency. You count and recount your stash, feeling each one like a minor miracle. If you run out, you might have to negotiate with the ancient, surly change machine, which eats dollars and spits out just enough coins to keep you guessing. Sorting the laundry is its own adventure. Socks in one pile, jeans in another, miscellaneous rags that used to be shirts in a third. There's always a rogue crayon hiding somewhere, ready to destroy your load in a burst of color. Whites and colors? That's for people with trust funds. Here, it's all just don't let the reds touch the towels and hope for the best. The machines start their thunderous cycles, churning clothes and soap in a ballet of suds. You dump in the cheapest detergent you can buy, maybe a capful of bleach for the whites, and a spritz of something that claims to be mountain fresh, but smells like desperation and dish soap. As the cycles run, kids roam the aisles, playing tag, spinning in the wheeled carts, and occasionally setting off the fire alarm by accident. The bravest attempt to sell lemonade or slightly used comic books to the captive audience. Time slows in the laundromat. You sit, stand, or lean against a washer, flipping through battered magazines, watching the communal TV blare local news or reruns. Someone tries to read, but mostly everyone just stares. At the tumbling clothes, at the floor, at each other, all united in the silent question, how much longer? The spin cycle is a test of patience, and the dryer is a test of faith. Clothes take forever to dry, especially if you got stuck with the weak machine that's more lukewarm breeze than actual heat. You feed it another quarter, glare at the timer, and debate whether anything in your load is truly dry or just not wet. Then, the ritual of folding begins. In the world of laundromats, folding is public performance art. You stack shirts, match socks, or don't, nobody's judging, and try to untangle your sheets without knocking over the neighbor's pile. Inevitably, a shirt you've never seen before ends up in your basket. You shrug. Finders keepers. If your socks match, it's a miracle. If everything smells remotely clean, it's a victory. Laundry day is exhausting and oddly communal, a chorus of sighs, chatter, and the unmistakable scent of bleach floating in the air. You carry your basket home, proud, tired, and only a little resentful of the kid who got bubble bath everywhere. Tomorrow, your clothes will be dirty again. But for now, you've survived the eternal wait. You've made your peace with mismatched socks, and you'll sleep tonight on sheets that smell faintly of soap, hope, and laundromat adventures. From your window, you see the distant glow of the Strip, but down your street, it's all porch lights, flickering bug zappers, and maybe someone barbecuing with a questionable extension cord. Night in the slums of 1970s. Vegas is its own kind of show, a different breed of entertainment from the glamorous casinos just a few miles away. While the city's center is buzzing with tuxedos, velvet ropes, and dreams of winning big, your block is alive in quieter, weirder, and somehow more honest ways. There's a soft, yellowish glow from porch lights struggling to illuminate the sidewalk, fighting a losing battle against the encroaching darkness and the neighborhood's moth population, which could probably unionize at this point. Bug zappers provide the only real fireworks, purple flashes, and a steady chorus of sizzles as they claim another victim. Every few minutes you hear a pop, a fizzle, and maybe a triumphant cheer from your neighbor Earl, who takes personal pride in his kill count. The bug zapper is part status symbol, part performance art, and part neighborhood nightlight. Sometimes, on quieter nights, you and your friends count the zaps like suburban thunder, making bets on which porch will be crowned the Bug King by midnight. Barbecuing after dark is a neighborhood tradition, equal parts culinary endeavor and group experiment. The grill, half rusted and running on more optimism than propane, is dragged into the yard, sometimes trailing an extension cord that's seen too many rainy days. You watch as someone's uncle lights the coals with a questionable mix of lighter fluid and ancient matches, squinting through the haze and flipping burgers that taste mostly of char and hope. Sides include potato chips, a can of beans, and the ever-present debate over whether hot dogs count as a complete protein. They're meat-adjacent, your dad insists, waving a spatula like a philosopher. The soundtrack is a blend of distant laughter, dogs barking at absolutely nothing, and the occasional thump of someone's portable radio playing oldies or disco, depending on which way the wind is blowing. A few blocks over, you might catch the faint boom of a casino show, fireworks, or maybe just another car backfiring. Every so often, a police siren slices through the evening, reminding everyone that the city's darker corners aren't always so far away. There's a special cast of night owls in your neighborhood. Some are old-timers, sitting in lawn chairs, legs up on the railing, telling stories that get taller with every retelling. Others are kids, still sticky from the day's ice cream, chasing lightning bugs and daring each other to touch the bug zapper just once. Porch conversations drift into the warm night air, and sometimes secrets get traded over the fence, guarded by the hum of a streetlight that's mostly for decoration. Inside, the lights flicker, thanks to the extension cord maze powering half your appliances. Shadows move across faded curtains as someone in the next apartment tries to find the right breaker switch. You hear TVs through thin walls, snippets of late-night talk shows, the familiar theme songs of detective dramas, and a laugh track that makes even your loneliest neighbors feel a little less alone. All the while, that distant glow of the strip remains, a reminder that somewhere, someone is winning big. But down here, the jackpots are simpler. A perfectly grilled burger, a cool evening breeze, or the rare moment when every porch light works at the same time. And as you settle in for the night, comforted by the chorus of bugs, laughter, and flickering lights, you know that this is your version of Vegas nightlife. Less glitz, more grit, and all the better for it. There's always a rumor about someone getting evicted. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's just the landlord flexing. Either way, your rent is in a coffee can, waiting for payday. In the slums of 1970s Vegas, stability is a matter of degrees and a lot of crossed fingers. The housing market isn't about buying and selling, it's about staying put, hanging on, and praying the roof doesn't leak any more than it did last week. Everyone knows someone who's been asked to leave, which is the polite way of saying they lost the rent lottery. In these parts, eviction notices show up with about as much warning as a surprise quiz, taped crookedly to the door, fluttering in the hot wind, and ignored until someone gets brave or desperate enough to peel it off and read it. Rumors swirl faster than the dust. I heard the Johnsons got a pink slip. No, it was the Rodriguezes. My cousin says Mr. Franklin's getting booted because his kid sprayed ketchup on the front steps. Spoiler, it's never about ketchup. Most of the time, it's just the landlord reminding everyone who's really in charge. They cruise by in faded pickup trucks, sunglasses on, scanning the block like sheriffs in a spaghetti western, looking for trouble or unpaid rent, or just to make sure you haven't painted the house lime green again. Paying rent is an art form. Forget online banking. Your family keeps cash tucked in a coffee can at the back of a kitchen cabinet. It's a sacred ritual, counting out bills on the table after payday, making sure nothing's missing, and if it is, negotiating which bill can be paid late just this once. Every adult in the house has a side hustle or two, selling tamales, mowing lawns, or fixing cars for neighbors willing to pay in cash, beer, or sometimes just a bag of groceries. When the landlord does come by, it's a spectacle. Sometimes they're friendly, a smile, a quick joke, maybe even pretending to care about the leaky faucet. We'll get to it next week, promise. They won't. Other times, they're all business, holding a clipboard and sighing heavily as if you personally ruined their afternoon. You stand in the doorway, clutching your envelope of rent, trying to read the situation. Is today a good cop or bad cop day? There's a running joke in the neighborhood. Friendly landlord is an oxymoron. But sometimes it's true, at least by comparison. The best landlords are the ones who live 2 blocks over, have kids in your school, and understand when the paycheck comes late or a car repair eats up the grocery money. They might let things slide, look the other way, or accept a late payment in exchange for a homemade pie or a promise to help clean up the lot behind the apartments. Of course, that generosity can be as fleeting as the Vegas rain. Miss rent 2 months in a row, and you start sleeping with one ear open for the sound of a notice being taped to your door. The threat of eviction is like background music, always there, never loud enough to drown out hope, but impossible to ignore. When someone really does move out, it's an event. Kids gather to watch, offering help that mostly means poking through whatever gets left behind. Grown-ups whisper, tallying up who's left and wondering who might be next. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a new family moves in before the dust settles, a chance to meet new neighbors, swap stories, and hope they like disco, loud kids, and the smell of swamp coolers. Through it all, you hang on, counting quarters, dodging rumors, and hoping for another month under the same sun-baked roof. Because in the slums, survival isn't about luck, it's about community, small victories, and never, ever losing track of the coffee can. Bugs are part of the ecosystem. Roaches in the cabinets, ants in the sugar, and a stray cat named Elvis who may or may not live under your porch. You quickly learn in the 1970s Vegas slums that nature isn't limited to the occasional dusty palm tree or the hint of cactus out by the sidewalk. Nature, in all its glory, is alive, well, and probably living rent-free in your kitchen. The cockroaches are the true landlords here, large, shiny, and so fearless they sometimes make eye contact as you reach for a glass. They skitter across the counter, vanishing under the toaster or behind a stack of chipped plates, like they've got important bug business to attend to. Sometimes you flick on the light at night, and it's like a surprise party, only you're never sure if you're the guest or the entertainment. Roaches aren't picky. They'll live in your cereal box, your laundry basket, your shoes. Once, you even saw one in the washing machine, just surfing the rinse cycle like it owned the place. The only thing more persistent than the cockroaches are the ants, who travel in endless lines to the sugar bowl, the crumbs under the table, and, on ambitious days, the bathroom soap dish. You set up makeshift barricades, lines of cinnamon, puddles of vinegar, desperate prayers. But the ants always find a way, like tiny sugar-obsessed commandos. Spiders, of course, are everywhere. You spot them in corners, behind curtains, and in the webbed artwork stretching across the mailbox. Some are tiny and harmless, others are bigger than your thumb and look like they could audition for a horror movie. Your family maintains a strict live and let live policy, unless one makes an appearance in the bathtub. Then it's war. Out comes the flip-flop, the rolled-up newspaper, or, if things get desperate, a sibling with a broom and zero mercy. Not all the wildlife is of the insect variety. There's always a stray cat, or 3 slinking through the neighborhood. One, inevitably, is named Elvis. He's big, orange, and mean, with a torn ear and the kind of attitude that says he's seen more of Vegas than you ever will. Sometimes he brings friends, other cats, a family of possums, the occasional confused pigeon, and they all seem to treat your porch as the neighborhood diner. Your mom swears she doesn't feed them. But somehow there's always an empty tuna can under the steps. The outdoor world is full of surprises too. Desert beetles, shiny black, and built like tanks, wander across the driveway. There are lizards sunning themselves on the cinder blocks, darting away at the slightest movement. Every so often, someone shouts about a snake under the car, and a crowd gathers to debate whether it's dangerous or just a garter. Either way, nobody wants to be the one to check. And let's not even start on the mosquitoes. In the rare moments after a summer rain, they rise up like a biblical plague, biting any exposed skin and making you wonder if bug spray was invented just for this zip code. You make peace with the critters, mostly because you have no choice. You get good at shaking out your shoes, checking your bed for centipedes, and learning which corners are safe to touch after dark. There's a certain camaraderie in it all. Every kid on the block has a bug story. Who got stung? Who found a scorpion in the laundry? Who woke up with a gecko on their face? It's a badge of honor, a weird rite of passage, and a reminder that, in Vegas, everyone's just trying to survive, critters and kids alike. At the end of the day, you sweep up the crumbs, chase Elvis off the porch, and pray tonight's cockroach Olympics will be quieter than last night's. Because in the slums, nature is always knocking, and it rarely takes no for an answer. You have that one neighbor who's got real air conditioning. They're basically royalty. You fantasize about sneaking into their living room just for 5 minutes of refrigerated bliss. In the sun-scorched slums of 1970s Vegas, central air isn't just a household feature. It's a myth, a legend, a shimmering oasis glimpsed through dusty blinds. Your own home is cooled, in theory, by the heroic, overworked swamp cooler, chugging out vaguely moist air that barely beats the outdoor breeze. But next door, behind thick curtains and a well-sealed door, lives a family who has done the unthinkable. Installed a humming box of Arctic power that promises real, honest-to-goodness cold. You can always tell which house has AC. The windows are closed, not propped open with a soup can. No one's sitting on the porch to catch a stray draft. Instead, you see them emerge only briefly, sweated in July, looking a little smug, a little paler than the rest, as if they've been kept in cold storage for emergencies. Kids from that house invite you over with the casual, offhand coolness of someone who knows they hold all the cards. You pretend not to care, but the minute you step through their door, it's like being swallowed by a department store refrigerator. Goosebumps, shivers, bliss. You try to play it cool, literally and figuratively. You make excuses to linger in the hallway. Oh, is that a new lava lamp? Mind if I use your bathroom? Anything to buy an extra minute of that icy air. Sometimes, you position yourself strategically under the vent, tilting your face upwards, letting the cold hit your forehead and thinking, so this is what the rich must feel like. Your friend's parents eye you with suspicion. They've seen this move before. Every kid on the block has tried it at least once. The AC house quickly becomes the center of neighborhood fantasy. Kids dream about sleepovers where they never leave the living room, playing board games and watching TV with a comfort you can only describe as postcard winter. Adults drop hints about stopping by just to say hello, and sometimes mysteriously offer to help with chores, fix sprinklers, or deliver a batch of cookies. Anything to catch a breeze. You listen, night after night, to the gentle hum of their condenser outside your bedroom window. Its low, mechanical purr, a reminder that elsewhere, someone is sleeping under a blanket by choice. Meanwhile, your own family has perfected the swamp cooler ritual, refilling the tray, adjusting the fan, taping the vent just so, and arranging chairs to maximize any gust of not hot air. But it's never quite enough. You press your face to the cool side of the fridge, dream of igloos, and debate if it's possible to move in with the neighbor just for the summer. Of course, AC envy isn't just about comfort. It's about class, status, and dreams. In the slums, everyone knows who's got it and who doesn't, and the conversations linger long after the sun goes down. You lie awake, sticky and sleepless, imagining a world where air conditioning is not a distant hope but a regular, humming reality. In the end, the AC house remains a symbol of hope, of comfort, of what you might have if you win big, or just if the landlord ever answers your prayers. Until then, you trade stories, fan yourself with last month's TV guide, and keep your envy quiet. Because in this heat, no one has the energy to complain out loud, but everyone, deep down, is dreaming cold dreams. With no money for the casino, adults play cards at the kitchen table, smoke fills the air, and someone's always cheating. Cheap beer is the drink of choice, and the only jackpot is not spilling it on the linoleum. Saturday night in the Vegas slums isn't about high-rolling or bright lights. It's about the familiar click of a shuffled deck, the fizz of another beer popping open, and the gentle background buzz of neighbors laughing through paper-thin walls. Out there, under the neon, strangers chase fortunes on slot machines. In here, everyone's gambling too, but the stakes are lower and the stories are much better. The table is the centerpiece of the action. A scarred rectangle of chipped formica, pockmarked from decades of use, legs propped up by a folded TV guide. An old lamp casts a pool of yellow light, catching the curling edges of cigarette smoke as it drifts to the ceiling and settles in for the night. The radio hums softly in the corner, disco fading in and out between static, and the only soundtrack louder is the constant shuffle of cards and the clatter of bottle caps. Players claim their seats, uncles, neighbors, the friend who just dropped by and never seems to leave. Everyone has a system, and everyone's got an opinion about the rules. The deck passes from hand to hand, sticky with sweat and spilled beer. Someone deals out a round of poker or rummy or whatever game is easiest to play, while keeping an eye on the kids in the other room. Chips are for amateurs. You're playing for nickels, buttons, or IOUs scrawled on the back of a napkin. Cheating is tradition. Nobody bothers to hide it. Cards mysteriously stick to elbows. Someone's always accidentally peeking, and a sharp-eyed aunt declares, "That's not how we play in my house," at least twice per game. A suspiciously lucky run from your dad prompts a round of accusations, wild laughter, and mock outrage. Someone will insist on recounting the legendary hand from last year, when your cousin tried to win a pot with a straight that included 2 8s and a joker. Cheap beer is the universal lubricant, flowing from battered six-packs and sweating cans. The labels peel off before the night is half over. For the grown-ups, a cold brew is both celebration and consolation, soothing wounded pride after a losing hand or adding confidence for the next round. Every spilled drop is met with groans and a mad dash for a towel. Not so much for cleanliness as for avoiding another lecture about ruining the floor. Kids wander in and out, attracted by the commotion or the possibility of sneaking a sip when the grown-ups aren't looking. The older ones are already learning the language of the table, bluffing, complaining, and declaring everything unfair. The younger ones beg for snacks, try to build card houses, or just watch, wide-eyed, as fortunes in buttons and loose change rise and fall. As the hours pass, the conversation drifts from game strategy to neighborhood news, gossip, and long stories about the old days. It's equal parts competition and group therapy, everyone piling on with tales of close calls, near wins, and the one time someone's uncle claimed to beat the house down on the strip. The night stretches on, punctuated by the laughter, bickering, and the slow, steady rhythm of the cards. Eventually, someone wins, someone loses, and someone's still claiming they were robbed. The table is littered with empty bottles, loose change, and crumbs from the last round of saltines. The winners brag, the losers grumble, and everyone already knows they'll do it all again next week. Because in the slums, Saturday night is about making your own luck, sharing what little you've got, and knowing that no matter how the cards fall, there's always another hand, another laugh, and another cold beer waiting. Anything broken? The answer is duct tape. Broken chair? Tape it. Cracked window? Tape it. Swamp cooler leaking? You guessed it. Duct tape, hope, and maybe a prayer. In the Vegas slums, you don't need a tool belt or a degree in engineering. You just need a giant roll of silver tape and a willingness to believe that nothing is ever truly broken, just not yet fixed with enough tape. Duct tape is currency, armor, and family heirloom, passed down from generation to generation, stickier with every handoff. There's always a half-used roll lurking in a kitchen drawer, another wedged under the sink, and at least one rogue strip already stuck to the sole of someone's flip-flop. When something breaks, and something always does, the family gathers to diagnose the problem. Is it leaking, wobbling, or making that noise again? You ask, with the weary resignation of a person who's seen the inside of too many appliances. The answer doesn't really matter. The solution is always the same. You wrap a strip around the trouble spot, pat it down, and step back to admire your work with the optimism of a homeowner on a home improvement show. That'll hold, you say, knowing full well it probably won't. But you're committed to the illusion. The chair with the missing rung, 3 layers of tape, wrapped like a cast on a broken leg. Now it squeaks a little more, but at least it's upright. The window with the crack running through it like a road map, a perfectly aligned patch job of crisscrossed silver, letting in light but keeping out most of the weather. If the wind blows just right, you can hear it flutter, a kind of musical reminder that you, too, are living on borrowed time. The swamp cooler is the ultimate test. Every summer, it sprouts new leaks, new rattles, and new existential crises. You seal the joints with tape, reinforce the hoses, and whisper encouraging words while you wedge a bucket underneath for backup. Sometimes, you suspect the only thing keeping the machine together is sheer stubbornness and the collective willpower of everyone who's ever tried to fix it. Kids get in on the act, too. They tape the handlebars back onto their bikes, patch holes in their sneakers, and repair torn backpacks with enough duct tape to start a new trend in schoolyard fashion. It's a rite of passage. Your first solo repair. Your first accidental tape on skin waxing incident. Your first moment of pride. When something you fixed lasts longer than a week. Of course, duct tape has its limits. Sometimes, after the 10th round of repairs, the kitchen chair collapses in spectacular fashion during dinner. Sometimes the window patch falls out in a rainstorm, turning your bedroom into a swamp. Sometimes the fridge door, no matter how much tape you use, just won't stay shut. When that happens, you sigh, tear off another strip, and start again. There's no defeat, only delay. The real rule of slum repairs. As long as it holds until payday, you're winning. Neighbors trade roles like precious metal. Need a loan? Forget money. Offer a half-used roll of duct tape, and you'll be repaid in baked goods or babysitting. It's a community resource, a shared language, and a collective joke. You see patched-together fences, patched-together toys, and, occasionally, patched-together dreams. At the end of the day, you survey your work, a house held together by tape and tenacity, a testament to the ingenuity and stubbornness of people who refuse to give up. No matter how many things fall apart, you wipe your hands, toss the empty roll in the trash, and make a mental note to buy more. Because in the slums, duct tape isn't just for repairs, it's for hope. And as long as there's tape, there's a way. Some days, it's sunburn weather. Others, a sandstorm blows in and coats everything with a fine layer of dust. And every once in a while, a monsoon turns the whole block into Venice, just with more broken glass. Living in the slums of 1970s Vegas means the forecast is less about meteorology and more about emotional preparation. The sun isn't just hot, it's actively hostile, a blinding spotlight that seems to chase you from shade to shade, daring you to step out for even a minute. Forget tanning. Here, you go straight from pale to boiled lobster in under 15 minutes. The concept of sunscreen exists in theory, but the practical reality is more whatever's left in last summer's bottle and a lot of wishful thinking. You start every day with hope and a hat, and end it with the world's weirdest farmer's tan. Then there are the sandstorms. No warning, no build-up, just a sudden wall of brown blowing in from the outskirts, rattling windows, pinging off the swamp cooler, and leaving the inside of your house looking like you keep your windows open during a construction project. Every surface gets gritty, every bite of dinner has a hint of earthy undertones, and your ears hold on to dust for a week. Walking home in a sandstorm is an act of bravery, or possibly denial, as you shield your eyes, hunch your shoulders, and accept that tonight's bathwater will run a strange, muddy color. Dust isn't the only thing in the wind. The smell of hot asphalt, melting plastic, and something less identifiable is that barbecue or burning motor oil wafts through the air on a regular basis. Kids make a game of drawing in the dust on car windows, leaving messages, doodles, or the occasional rude cartoon for their friends or their enemies. Every house keeps a broom by the door, but nobody actually believes they can ever get rid of all the sand. And then, just when you've surrendered to a life of permanent dryness, the rains come. Vegas doesn't do gentle drizzles. It's all or nothing. A sudden downpour that hits so hard and fast, you barely have time to close the windows before your living room becomes a slip and slide. Gutters overflow instantly, forming miniature rivers down the street. The alley out back transforms into a swamp, and you get to play the fun game called, "Is that puddle deeper than my shoe?" Kids, of course, treat floods like Christmas morning. Shoes and socks come off, shorts go on, and every available piece of cardboard becomes a makeshift boat. You'll see someone's little brother surfing down the gutter, neighbors shouting advice from their porches, and at least one parent running around with a mop, muttering curses in 2 languages. Just as quickly as it comes, the rain vanishes, leaving behind a humid haze, weird smells, and a fresh batch of mud tracked all the way through the house. The weather is an equalizer. Nobody escapes it, nobody controls it, and nobody quite believes the local weatherman, whose best prediction is usually hot, with a chance of weird. Umbrellas exist, but only as broken skeletons jammed in closets, relics from another state. The real protection is community, borrowing a hat, sharing shade, or laughing at the absurdity of getting drenched in the desert. By the end of the day, you accept your fate. Sunburnt nose, sandy feet, muddy shoes, and a wild story for tomorrow's chisme. Because in Vegas, the weather is just another part of the gamble, and no matter what the sky throws your way, you learn to play the hand you're dealt, grit and all. On Sundays, things slow down. Maybe you go to church, maybe you sleep in, maybe you just eat pancakes and watch the neighborhood wake up in slow motion. The pace is different. The usual hustle of weekday mornings, racing the school bus, battling the swamp cooler, and dodging barking dogs, fades into something softer, almost peaceful. For once, the air isn't vibrating with the symphony of lawnmowers, yelling parents, and disco from 3 different windows. The world outside your window is calm, just sunlight trickling over empty streets, birds chirping in the distance, and the low hum of a neighborhood taking a collective, much-needed breath. If you're one of the early risers, you tiptoe into the kitchen and start the pancake process. The box mix is cheap and reliable. Add water, stir with a fork, ignore the lumps, and hope for the best. There's always a contest to see who can flip the biggest, fluffiest cake, and who accidentally creates the kind of pancake that looks like something from a Rorschach test. Syrup is rationed carefully, butter is scraped from its paper like gold, and the best part is licking the spoon while you wait for the first round to cook. Church is a ritual for many. The family squeezes into nice clothes, often just the cleanest hand-me-downs, patched and pressed for the occasion. Everyone piles into the car, squinting through dusty windows, and sets off for the nearest chapel. The church is a little oasis of order in the chaos. Stained glass, hard pews, the buzz of ceiling fans working overtime. You recognize the neighbors, nod to classmates dressed in unfamiliar shoes, and try not to fidget during the hymns. The sermon is equal parts spiritual guidance and subtle update on the block's latest news. Who's sick? Who's moved away? Who brought the best casserole to last week's potluck? But not every family goes to church. For some, Sunday is sacred in a different way. It's a morning to sleep in, roll out of bed just before noon, and sprawl across the living room, plate of pancakes in one hand, TV remote in the other. Cartoons play softly, mixing with the smell of syrup and fried bologna. Mum sips her coffee, reading the paper with one eye on the window, while Dad fiddles with the radio, searching for a game or just the soothing drone of a local preacher. Kids camp out on the shag rug, planning imaginary adventures or just letting the morning stretch as long as possible. Outside, the neighborhood is uncharacteristically quiet. The clatter of bikes and lawnmowers is replaced by the occasional dog bark or the distant bell from the corner church. Neighbors wave lazily from their porches, pajama-clad and squinting into the sun, coffee mugs raised in solidarity. There's no rush to do anything, no race to be anywhere, and no shame in spending half the morning in yesterday's clothes. Some families take the chance to catch up on chores, hanging laundry in the still, warm air, sweeping the porch, or finally tackling that broken fence. Others just sit in the shade, swapping stories, gossip, and the last of the pancakes. Even the desert seems to hush, the relentless heat taking a short break, letting everyone pretend, if only for a few hours, that life isn't always a struggle. By afternoon, the neighborhood gradually stirs. Kids start wandering out for another round of bikes and ball games. Grown-ups check the swamp cooler, plan dinner, and brace themselves for Monday. But for a little while, Sunday belongs to pancakes, peace, and the rarest luxury of all, a quiet street. In the Vegas slums, Sunday morning isn't just a break from the week. It's proof that even in a place built on noise and motion, there's still space for slow, gentle mornings and the simple sweetness of doing nothing at all. There's no fancy playground. It's a couple of abandoned cars, a dusty lot, and a swing set that wobbles more than it swings. Still, you invent adventures, because imagination is free. Welcome to the real neighborhood park, the lot at the end of the block, where grass is a rumor and the only landscaping comes from weeds tough enough to survive a Vegas summer. The official playground equipment is a swing set with one good seat, one missing chain, and a slide that could double as a fry pan by noon. Someone's dad built a seesaw out of a plank and a cinder block, and it's only fallen apart 3 times this year. Most of the fun, though, revolves around the abandoned cars, their paint faded, and their seats long since claimed by the sun and generations of kids. To grown-ups, they're junk. To you and your friends, they're pirate ships, race cars, moonlanders, or secret hideouts, depending on the day's mission. The back seat of the old Chevy becomes the captain's quarters. The cracked windshield is the porthole for a submarine voyage, and the trunk is off-limits, home to mysterious shadows and probably a raccoon that nobody wants to meet. Safety isn't exactly guaranteed. The slide wobbles when you climb it, and there's a rule about not wearing shorts unless you want third-degree burns on your legs. The swings creak ominously, and every so often the chains will snap free, sending you flying with more excitement than you bargained for. You land in the dust, brush yourself off, and compare battle scars, scraped knees, stubbed toes, the occasional mysterious rash from playing in the tall grass. Nobody minds. If you make it home without at least one new bruise, you probably didn't play hard enough. Games are invented on the spot, fueled by boredom and collective genius. Kick the can, tag, or the ever-popular see who can jump the farthest from the broken bumper. Sometimes a grown-up tries to organize something official, but it never sticks. Kids prefer their own rules. Last one to the fence is it. Stepping on the crack in the sidewalk means you're out, and the best hiding spot is always under the car with the wasp nest, until someone gets stung. Friendships are forged in dust and sunburn. The older kids teach the younger ones how to jump from the swing at just the right height. The bravest dare each other to crawl through the hole in the fence, even though there's nothing but a dumpster and some suspiciously aggressive pigeons on the other side. Everyone has a secret stash: marbles, bottle caps, maybe a prized action figure, or a shiny rock with magical powers. Trade is fierce and negotiations are long, but loyalty lasts until someone cheats at Red Rover. Parents watch from porches, half amused, half resigned. They know that kids with dirty hands and wild hair are happy kids, and that the lot, rust, glass, ants, and all, is safer than most places in town. They keep an eye out for trouble, shout warnings about not going too far, and occasionally bandage up skinned elbows with a rag and a lot of sympathy. When dusk falls, you wander home, shoes full of sand, hair full of static, and a brain swirling with stories. I was the astronaut who landed on Mars. I made it all the way to the top of the world's tallest slide. We saw a ghost in the trunk. No, really, because here, in the shadow of neon and casinos, the playground is where you learn courage, creativity, and the true value of making your own fun out of almost nothing. And tomorrow, the lot will still be there, waiting for new adventures and new legends. Some places call it abandoned. You call it the greatest playground in the world. As night falls, the temperature barely drops. Neon glows on the horizon. You listen to the hum of the swamp cooler and the distant sounds of city life, and you drift off, half dreaming of better days or just a new fan. Nighttime in the slums of 1970s, Vegas is its own special experience. A delicate balance between exhaustion, ingenuity, and the unrelenting desert heat. You'd think that when the sun finally disappears behind the Strip's flashing towers, things would cool down. They don't. The air inside your room is thick and unmoving, heat radiating off the walls like a low-budget sauna. The only thing more persistent than the warmth is your determination to get some sleep, no matter what. You lie on top of your sheets, searching for the sweet spot. Not too close to the window. The frame is still hot. Not too close to the fan. It mostly pushes hot air round. And not directly under the ceiling, which seems to be conducting a scientific experiment in slow-cooked humanity. Your pillow, if you're lucky, has a cool corner left. You flip it every 10 minutes, a quiet ritual performed by every insomniac in the neighborhood. Outside, the city is alive. The distant thunder of cars on the highway, the occasional honk, and the rhythmic squeak of someone's bike wheels blend together with a soft hum from your own block. A dog barks, a baby cries, someone's TV leaks canned laughter through the thin walls, and somewhere far off, a police siren briefly reminds you that Vegas never really sleeps. All the while, the neon from downtown shimmers against the desert sky, painting your ceiling in shades of pink and blue you couldn't mix on purpose if you tried. The swamp cooler gurgles away, working hard to convince you it's helping. The air it blows is wet and tepid, sometimes carrying the faint smell of mildew or last night's dinner. You've positioned a fan at the foot of the bed, creating just enough breeze to keep the mosquitoes guessing. Occasionally, you catch a whiff of fresh air through the open window, only to realize it's just your neighbor's barbecue smoke sneaking in for a visit. You close your eyes, listening to the soft, repetitive noises: fan, cooler, city. Your thoughts wander. You think about school, about tomorrow's adventures, about whether you'll get first pick at breakfast or have to settle for the crusty end of the Wonder Bread. Maybe you dream of big wins on the Strip, or of moving somewhere with real grass and air conditioning that doesn't require a prayer and a roll of duct tape. Or maybe, most of all, you dream of sleep itself, a full, cool, undisturbed night. Sometimes, the heat makes you restless. You toss and turn, stick your feet out, then pull them back in after remembering every story you've ever heard about things that crawl at night. You count the seconds between the swamp cooler's gurgles, or invent games with the blinking lights outside your window. 2 reds, 1 blue, 3 whites means you win or lose, depending on your rules. But then, gradually, your body surrenders. Maybe it's the day's exhaustion catching up, or maybe it's the hypnotic song of summer, the rise and fall of background noise, the distant flicker of neon, the ever-present hope that tomorrow will be a little bit easier, a little bit cooler. Your breathing slows, your eyelids grow heavy, and the line between waking and dreaming blurs into something soft and kind. And in that twilight space, you realize that even here, even in the hottest, noisiest corner of 1970s Vegas, hope is a habit. Every night, you let go of the sweat, the noise, the worries, and you drift off, quietly confident that you'll wake up to another day. Maybe it'll be cooler, maybe you'll get that new fan, but even if you don't, you'll get through, because sleep, in the end, is the biggest gamble, and sometimes, against all odds, you win. Saturday morning isn't for cartoons, it's for scavenging the block-wide yard sale circuit. Your mom eyes a lamp shaped like a pineapple, your dad is bargaining for a box of mismatched wrenches. There's always hope that someone's junk will solve your family's problems, or at least keep the coffee table standing for another week. Every bargain comes with a story, and every purchase is a gamble. This is Vegas. After all, yard sales in the slums are part community event, part survival strategy, and part amateur theater. The night before, families haul forgotten treasures out of closets and sheds. Rusty bikes, chipped mugs, an exercise machine that's only been used as a clothes rack. Old toys are lined up on a card table, missing limbs and mystery stains included. A sign, hand-lettered in permanent marker, reads, "Everything must go," which is optimistic, but necessary, because everything does have to go. There's no room for sentimentality when rent is due and space is at a premium. By sunrise, the block is alive with bargain hunters. Neighbors stroll by with coffee in hand, eyeing each other's merchandise, exchanging gossip and lowball offers. Kids compare comic books and dig through boxes of plastic dinosaurs, hoping to find one that isn't chewed. There's a competition to see who can find the weirdest thing for a nickel. One kid scores a sombrero with a broken chin strap. Another finds a shoe that almost fits if you don't wear socks. Nobody comes for what they actually need. They come for what might, somehow, become useful. Your dad approaches the seller with the intensity of a professional negotiator. He haggles over socket wrenches and half sets of steak knives. "How about $2 for the lot?" he says, holding up an unidentifiable gadget that, with enough imagination and duct tape, could be the missing piece to fix the screen door. Your mum, meanwhile, collects mismatched glassware and the kind of decorative figurines that double as conversation starters. Did you see that ceramic clown on the bookshelf? Found it for a dime. You learn the rules early. Always check the bottom of a box. Always open the board games to make sure the pieces are there. Never trust a radio unless you hear it play. Half the fun is the hope. Maybe this blender works. Maybe this lamp just needs a new bulb. Maybe this pile of bolts is exactly what you need to fix the wobbly kitchen table. You learn to look past scratches, dents, and the strong smell of musty cardboard. You develop an eye for value, or at least for things that look cool enough to brag about at school. And then there's the swap meet, a step up from the casual yard sale, held in a dusty parking lot or abandoned field, where whole families bring carloads of odds and ends. The barter economy comes alive. Your stack of National Geographics for 3 half-melted candles and a working alarm clock. The negotiations get intense, but everyone leaves with something new to them and a story about the one that got away. Back home, you help unload the haul. The pineapple lamp gets a place of honor in the living room. The box of tools disappears into the shed. The almost complete puzzle becomes the new family project. Everyone working together, even if the last piece is, inevitably, missing. There's a weird satisfaction in giving new life to someone else's leftovers, patching together a sense of home from other people's discards. And as you finally sit down, surrounded by bargains, you realize that in the slums, the economy of junk isn't just about saving money. It's about hope, creativity, and the endless quest to turn one person's trash into another's treasure, 1/4 at a time. There's a certain drama to never knowing if the lights will actually turn on. Some nights, you eat dinner by candlelight, romantic if you ignore the fact it's because the power bill got lost. Again, water shutoffs mean creative hygiene solutions, baby wipes, garden hoses, or, on bold days, just pretending you're European and skipping a day. Modern comforts? In the slums, they're more like limited-time offers. In the 1970s Vegas slums, the word utility is less about convenience and more about chance. Every flick of the light switch is a moment of suspense. Will the bulb glow? Will it flicker? Or will you be left in cinematic darkness, forced to navigate your own living room by memory and stubbed toes? Nobody takes electricity for granted. There's always the looming possibility that, due to a billing miscommunication translation, money's tight and priorities are tighter. The electric company will decide you need a break from modernity. On those evenings when the power cuts out, the whole family transforms into pioneers. Candles are produced from junk drawers, some new, some relics of birthdays past, all scented in ways no one can identify anymore. If you're lucky, there's an old flashlight, batteries weak, but good for at least 20 minutes of shadow puppet entertainment before it sputters out. The TV is silent, the fridge grows ominously warmer, and the radio becomes the family's lifeline to the outside world until someone accidentally sits on it. Dinner by candlelight is a lesson in resourcefulness. Canned beans, peanut butter sandwiches, maybe some slightly thawed ice cream if you eat it before it melts into a milkshake. You laugh, tell stories, and try to forget that, across town, other families are watching sitcoms and microwaving popcorn. For one night, at least, you're living in a world before light pollution, a family huddled together, half out of necessity, half out of habit. But electricity isn't the only utility with a flair for drama. Water shutoffs have their own particular chaos. One day, you wake up to find the tap hissing air and the showerhead as dry as the Nevada desert outside. Brushing your teeth means creative rationing with the last drops from a plastic jug. Baths are replaced by the bird bath method, a washcloth, a sink, and the hope that nobody stands too close at school tomorrow. If it's summer, the solution is often the garden hose out back, kids lined up for a 2-minute spray down, neighbors pretending not to notice. Your mum becomes a master at prioritizing. Drinking water gets stored in washed-out milk jugs. Dishes are stacked until the next time, and you might even treat yourself to a French day, skipping the shower entirely and calling it culture. Every now and then, the gas runs out. No hot water for weeks, just cold showers and an elaborate ritual with the kettle to fill a tub halfway, one pot at a time. The oven is off limits, so meals get cooked on the two-burner hot plate, or, if all else fails, on the barbecue out front, turning necessity into a block party. There's an odd pride in mastering the utility roulette. Everyone shares tips: how to reset the breaker with a butter knife, where to buy candles cheap, which neighbor will lend a bucket of water for emergencies. When everything finally kicks back on, the lights flicker, the water runs, the fridge hums. You cheer like you've won the jackpot, because in the slums, you learn to savor every spark, every drip, and every hot shower. Modern comforts may come and go, but your family's ability to adapt is permanent, and sometimes you even end up liking dinner by candlelight, at least until the ice cream melts. Living in the shadow of the strip means coexisting with the original locals. Lizards darting across your floor, geckos in the laundry, and on truly unlucky days, a rattlesnake in the driveway. The rule is simple: if it scurries, let it be. If it rattles, call your bravest neighbor, or just move for the day. It's a wild kingdom, but at least the cockroaches are predictable. If you grew up in the slums of 1970s Vegas, you got used to living one step removed from a petting zoo, minus the petting, plus the running, and the occasional shriek. Each day is a surprise, a desert adventure right outside and sometimes inside your door. The morning starts with a lizard sprinting under your feet as you stumble into the kitchen. The little guys are everywhere, sunning themselves on window ledges, frozen in place on the sidewalk, or somehow squeezing in through cracks in the wall to take up residence behind the cereal boxes. Catching a lizard becomes both sport and entertainment. Kids gather with empty jars, cardboard boxes, or just their bare hands, tracking their quarry with the determination of amateur herpetologists. There's always one friend who claims he can catch anything, until he grabs a lizard's tail and ends up holding a squirming, detached tail while the rest of the lizard escapes, probably laughing in whatever language lizards speak. If you're merciful, you let your catch go after a few minutes of admiring its scaly, shifty-eyed glory. If you're not, it ends up as the star of a makeshift terrarium for a day before someone's mom insists that thing goes back outside. Then there are the geckos, the sneakiest members of the reptile crew. These pale little escape artists love the cool darkness of laundry baskets and cardboard boxes. One minute, you're reaching for a clean t-shirt. The next, a gecko is skittering up your arm, causing a minor household panic and at least one dropped load of socks. Parents pretend not to notice. After all, geckos eat bugs, and any creature willing to take on the cockroaches is unofficially welcome. But sometimes, the wildlife comes with fangs. Rattlesnakes are the uninvited guests at every neighborhood barbecue. You spot one curled up in the shade of a tire, or slithering slowly across the driveway, rattle buzzing like a defective doorbell. The unwritten code is clear: if you hear a rattle, you don't play hero. You retreat, calmly if you're grown, like a cartoon character if you're a kid, and alert the local snake wrangler. This is usually someone's uncle, armed with a broom, a trash can, and a story about the big one he caught back in '68. The rest of the day is spent recounting the tale of your brush with danger and swearing to check your shoes every morning forever. The rest of the desert's cast is less dramatic but just as ever-present. Beetles the size of marbles trundle along the patio, centipedes dart across bathroom tiles, and every so often, a bird or wayward bat ends up trapped in the garage, causing a family-wide operation to coax it out with brooms, towels, and a lot of nervous shouting. Even the neighborhood cats, tough as they are, know better than to tangle with some of these desert veterans. By nightfall, the animal kingdom retreats, and you count yourself lucky if the only thing that scurries across your room is a harmless lizard or a moth attracted to the porch light. You pull the covers tight, dreaming of a zoo with walls and wishing tomorrow's wildlife sighting is more gecko and less danger noodle, because in the Vegas slums, every day is a safari. The rules are simple: stay alert, don't poke the wildlife, and always, always check your shoes. TV time is a ritual of patience and creativity. You fiddle with rabbit ears, stack phone books, and wrap everything in tinfoil, praying for a glimpse of happy days or whatever is less static than usual. Sometimes you end up watching 3 hours of Spanish soap operas, learning dramatic sighs before you learn the language. It's a low-stakes gamble, and, like most things in the neighborhood, you play to win what you can. In the 1970s Vegas slums, television isn't just entertainment, it's an art form. The TV itself is a beast, bulky, slightly humming, and encased in wood veneer that's seen better decades. Sometimes it sits on the floor, sometimes on a stand made out of stacked milk crates and last year's phone books. There's always a knob missing, replaced by a pair of pliers or a well-trained pinky finger. Getting a clear picture is a quest worthy of myth. The rabbit ears, a misleadingly cute name for 2 metal rods of pure frustration, stick out at odd angles. Maybe someone once broke one, so now it's taped back together, giving the set a lopsided Frankenstein look. When things get desperate, which is most nights, you enlist the help of the household tinfoil stash. You wrap the antennas with strips of foil, sculpting them into shapes that defy both physics and good taste. The theory is more tinfoil equals more channels. In reality, it usually means more static and an increased risk of accidentally intercepting air traffic control. The ritual is always the same. Someone sits in front of the TV, another stands behind it, both performing a silent, choreographed ballet. No, left, no, right, hold it, right there. Don't move. You stand, arms outstretched, foot on a stack of Reader's Digests, one hand on the antenna and one eye on the screen, straining for the perfect moment when the picture goes from snowstorm to slightly fuzzy but watchable. There's a mad dash for the couch when things finally clear. Because everyone knows the magic lasts only until someone sneezes or the cat walks by. Programming is a mixed bag, dictated by whatever channel is coming in clearest. If you're lucky, it's Happy Days or The $6 Million Man, though you never see an entire episode without at least one scene lost to static. Other nights, you settle for reruns of ancient westerns or, if fate is feeling spicy, several hours of telenovelas. You may not speak Spanish, but you quickly master the essentials: shocked faces, dramatic pauses, and the universal language of gasp-worthy plot twists. By the end of the week, your whole family is accidentally bilingual in soap opera heartbreak. Commercial breaks are an event all their own. You memorize every local car dealership jingle, every ad for carpet cleaning, and every desperate call now that promises you can win a boat you'd never fit in your backyard. You can recite phone numbers for pizza delivery places that went out of business years ago. Sometimes, on special occasions, a family friend comes over, claiming they know a trick. Maybe it's adding a metal hanger to the antenna. Maybe it's balancing a can of soup on top. Maybe it's everyone standing on one foot and wishing really hard. Whatever the hack, it usually ends in laughter, a flash of color on the screen, and another hour spent together squinting at blurry sitcoms. In the end, you don't remember the static, the fuzzy faces, or even which shows you watched most. You remember everyone crowded together on the couch, the excitement when the picture finally cleared, and the comfort of voices, English or Spanish, filling up the small room with light and laughter. Because in the slums, the television lottery isn't about winning perfect clarity. It's about making do, getting creative, and celebrating every victory, no matter how fleeting, with the people right beside you. With police a distant rumor and security systems just something you see on TV. Neighborhood safety depends on gossip, good intentions, and that one retiree who patrols with a flashlight and endless suspicion. Everyone knows everyone's business. Curtains twitch, phones ring, and every unfamiliar car is discussed at length. It's security through scrutiny, and sometimes the best alarm is a nosy neighbor with a lot of time. Forget sirens and alarm bells. In the slums of 1970s Vegas, your first line of defense is the human periscope. Mrs. Morrison, retired, widowed, and fueled entirely by instant coffee and curiosity. She sits by her window all day, claiming it's for the breeze, but everyone knows she's cataloging comings and goings in a notebook so thick it could be used as evidence. There isn't a bicycle that moves, a cat that strays, or a light that flickers on after 10 p.m. that escapes her watchful gaze. She's not alone, either. The block is full of amateur sentries, the dads who water their lawns 3 times a day, just keeping it green, the mums who sweep their porches at strategic hours, the teens who loiter with intent, pretending not to notice but cataloguing everything for later. Security here is a team sport, played with binoculars, rotary phones, and an unspoken code. If you see something, say something, preferably before lunch. Every strange car is a potential story. Is it a new neighbor? A lost relative? Or, scandal of scandals, a boyfriend nobody has met? The arrival of a non-local license plate triggers a coordinated response. Mrs. Morrison takes notes. Mr. Gonzalez pretends to fix his fence, but keeps a beady eye on the road, and within minutes, half the block is peering through blinds, whispering theories. By sunset, the story has made its rounds, and any remaining mysteries are filed away for tomorrow's updates. Gossip is the lifeblood of security. Before Facebook, before neighborhood watch signs, there was the grapevine. Information travels by phone, by shouted window conversations, and by the ever-present game of telephone between kids running errands. Who forgot to lock their back gate? Who's got a new TV? Who left their car windows down in a dust storm? No secret is safe for long. Sometimes, the stories are wildly exaggerated. A broken mailbox becomes a crime wave. A delivery man is mistaken for a government agent. But the end result is always a community that knows itself, inside and out. Of course, not every threat is serious. Sometimes, the greatest danger is a pack of kids up to no good in someone's backyard, or a stray dog making a mess of the trash cans. The response is always swift. A chorus of, "Hey, you kids get out of there," or "Whose dog is this?" echoing down the street. Actual emergencies, a fire, a break-in, or a really bad storm, are met with instant cooperation. People run, doors open, hands help, and for a moment, the block operates like a single, determined organism. There's comfort in all the scrutiny. Sure, it means you can't get away with sneaking home past curfew or hiding a secret snack stash, but it also means that if your porch light burns out or your youngest goes missing for 5 minutes, there's a whole community already mobilizing. The unwritten rule: everyone looks out for everyone else, even if it means getting an earful about your lawn or your laundry in the process. By bedtime, the neighborhood settles down, one eye still open, curtains still twitching, flashlights still ready. In the absence of high-tech security, you sleep easy, knowing that vigilance is local, loyalty is strong, and Mrs. Morrison's notebook will record another quiet, well-watched night. In this neighborhood, safety isn't about locks, it's about looking out, laughing together, and never letting anyone, friend or stranger, go unnoticed. So tonight, as you slowly drift away, let's take a moment to step back out of the desert heat and leave 1970s Vegas where it belongs, humming softly behind us, glowing faintly in the distance like a flickering neon sign that's seen better days. You survived the swamp coolers that never quite cooled, the bologna sandwiches that somehow fed entire families, the televisions that only worked if you stood at exactly the right angle, and the kind of heat that made sleep feel like an endurance sport. You made it through creaky floors, unreliable utilities, dusty streets, and neighborhoods held together by duct tape, shared cigarettes, and a mutual understanding that everyone was just doing their best. And somehow, in the middle of all that, there was still laughter. Kids still chased ice cream trucks. Neighbors still borrowed sugar they never returned. Families still sat around kitchen tables, even if the table wobbled and the chairs didn't match. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was lived, loudly, stubbornly, with a strange kind of pride. The people who made it through those days weren't chasing jackpots or penthouse dreams. They were chasing rent money, a working fan, and a little peace before the sun came up again. And they did it with resilience, humor, and an impressive ability to fall asleep through sirens, disco music, and the desert refusing to cool down. So as you lie there now, wrapped in clean sheets, maybe under actual air conditioning, with lights that stay on and water that behaves itself. Take a second to appreciate just how good you've got it. Whisper a quiet thank you to the people who came before you, who survived heat waves without central air, raised families on canned dinners, and somehow found joy in places that didn't look joyful at all. Because history isn't just kings and casinos and bright lights. Sometimes it's a tired family in a small apartment, a box fan rattling through the night, and the simple victory of making it to tomorrow. And with that, let your breathing slow. Let the neon fade. Let the desert finally cool. Good night.